He didn't mean to smell it. He was just standing close, checking papers, doing his job. But then it hit him. That scent. Soft, warm, familiar in a way that made no sense. His hand froze on the desk. His breath caught because he knew that scent. He had smelled it once before, years ago, on a night he never talks about. A night he thought he buried forever. Now it was standing in his office, wearing a cheap tie and a nervous smile, calling itself his new assistant. The alpha's eyes went cold. His chest went tight. Everything he thought he knew just cracked open. Who was this man really? And why did fate bring him back now? Stay with me. This story hits different. Tell us your name and where you are watching from in the comment section. Now let the story begin. Before we continue, if you love slow burn alpha romance stories like this, hit that subscribe button now. New stories drop often and you don't want to miss what happens next. Okay, let's get into it. The city never really sleeps. Not this part of it anyway. Glass towers stretch into the sky, and one of them belongs to a company called Draven Holdings. On the top floor, behind a door thick enough to stop a bullet, sits a man named Cale Draven. People say a lot of things about Cale. They say he built his empire before he turned 25. They say he fired his last 3 assistants in 1 week. They say he once made a grown man cry just by raising one eyebrow. Most of it is probably true. Right now, Cale is standing at his window looking down at the city like it owes him money. His jaw is tight, his arms are crossed. On his desk, his phone buzzes for the 5th time in 2 minutes. He does not look at it. His assistant just quit. Again. She said working for you feels like defusing a bomb every single day. His head of security, a broad man named Rurik, says from the doorway. He is trying very hard not to smile. He is failing badly. Cale does not turn around. Then find someone who is good with bombs. Rurik laughs, one short bark of a laugh. You know, most bosses would take that as a hint to be nicer. I am nice, Cale says. You made an intern cry over a stapler. The stapler was in the wrong drawer. Rurik shakes his head and leaves, still laughing. This is a normal morning for Cale Draven. Nothing about it feels strange yet. Nothing feels like it is about to change. Across town, in a much smaller apartment, a young man named Soren is standing in front of a mirror, fixing a tie for the 10th time. His hands will not stop shaking. Okay, he says to his reflection. You can do this. It is just a job. Rich guy, big office, probably yells a lot. You have survived worse. Reflection does not look convinced. Soren grew up without much money. He worked 2 jobs through university just to keep the lights on. He is smart. Sharper than people expect from someone who smiles that easily, but life has thrown him one bad break after another. This job, assistant to Cale Draven, pays more in 1 month than his last job paid in 6. He needs this. His little sister starts university next year. Someone has to pay for it and their parents are gone. It has been Soren and his sister against the world for a long time now. He grabs his bag, takes one last breath, and heads out the door. The elevator ride up to the top floor of Draven Holdings takes exactly 40 seconds. Soren counts every one of them. When the doors open, he almost turns around and gets back in. The office is enormous. Glass walls, black marble floors. Everything looks expensive in a way that makes Soren very aware of the coffee stain on his shirt cuff that he tried to hide with his sleeve. You must be the new assistant, a voice says. Soren turns and sees Rurik, arms crossed, smiling in a way that feels like a warning. I am. Soren Vale. Luck, Soren Vale, Rurik says and walks away laughing. That is not reassuring at all. Cale's office door is at the very end of the hall and it might as well be a mile away. Soren walks toward it like he is walking toward a job interview and his own execution at the same time. He knocks. No answer. He knocks again. If you are going to knock like that, you might as well leave now, a voice says from inside. Soren opens the door. Cale Draven is standing by the window, back turned, one hand in his pocket, the other holding a phone he is clearly not looking at. Even from behind, he looks like the kind of person who has never once been told no and believed it. I'm the new assistant, Soren says. His voice comes out steadier than he feels. Soren Vale. Cale turns around. For 1 second, just one, something flickers across his face. His eyes narrow slightly. His head tilts just barely like a dog catching a sound no one else can hear. Then it is gone. You have 30 seconds to convince me you will last longer than the last one, Kale says. The last one lasted a week. Then you have a low bar to clear, Soren blinks. Is that a joke? It does not sound like a joke. Kale's face has not moved an inch. I graduated top of my class, Soren says. I can organize anything. I do not scare easily and I make excellent coffee. I do not drink coffee. I make excellent tea then. The first time something that might possibly maybe be the beginning of a smile touches the corner of Kale's mouth. It disappears almost immediately, like he caught it doing something it was not supposed to do. Sit, Kale says, nodding at the chair across from his desk. Let's see if you can keep up. What follows is, without question, the most intense job briefing of Soren's entire life. Kale talks fast. He expects Soren to remember everything the first time. He does not repeat himself. He does not soften anything, but here is the strange part. Every time Soren answers correctly, every time he keeps up, something shifts in Kale's expression. Just slightly, like he is surprised, like he expected Soren to fail and is quietly annoyed that he has not. Schedule the Tanaka meeting for Thursday, not Wednesday, Kale says, testing him an hour later. Why? Because Wednesday you have the board call and Tanaka hates waiting, Soren answers without missing a beat. Also, you told Rurik last week you wanted Thursdays free after 3, so I would push it to 2 instead. Kale stares at him. I was listening, Soren says, shrugging. It is kind of my job. Kale says nothing, but he does not argue either. And later, when Soren leans over the desk to point something out on a document, something happens that neither of them expects. Kale goes very still. It is quick, a breath, a pause that lasts maybe 2 seconds too long. His eyes flick towards Soren's neck, then away just as fast, like he caught himself doing something wrong. Is something wrong? Soren asks, straightening up. No, Kale says, too quickly. Get back to work. Soren does not think much of it. He has no idea what just happened. He has no idea that Kale Draven, a man who does not startle, a man who has stared down federal investigators without blinking, just felt his entire chest go tight over a smell. A scent. One he has not smelled in 3 years. One he thought he would never smell again. One that belongs to a memory he has never told a single living person about. Kale watches Soren gather his things at the end of the day, laughing at something Rurik said in the hallway, completely unaware that he has just cracked something open in a man who does not let anything crack. Rurik, Kale says quietly, once Soren is gone. Yeah, boss, pull his file, everything, full background. Rurik raises an eyebrow. Everyone's file or just his, just his. Never ask for background checks on assistants. I am asking now. Rurik studies him for a moment, then nods slowly, his usual joking energy gone. Something wrong. Kale looks out the window again at the city lights starting to come on below. I don't know yet, he says, but something feels familiar, and I don't like not knowing why. Outside, Soren steps onto the street, pulling his jacket tighter against the evening cold, completely unaware that somewhere above him, a man is staring at a folder with his name on it, trying to figure out why one single moment in a crowded office just made 3 years of silence come rushing back. Neither of them knows it yet. But something has already started. Something neither one of them can stop. 3 days pass. Soren settles into a routine. Wake up early, catch the train, walk into a building that still makes him nervous every single morning, and spend 8 hours trying to keep up with a man who moves through the world like everyone else is too slow for him. It is not easy, but Soren is good at it. Better than he expected. Kale, on the other hand, is quiet in a new way. He watches Soren more than he used to, not in an obvious way. Small things. The way Soren tucks his pen behind his ear when he is thinking. The way he hums under his breath when the office is empty. Kale tells himself he is just paying attention because that is what a boss does. He is lying to himself and he knows it. Rurik brought him the file 2 days ago. Soren Vale, 25 years old, grew up in the east side of the city. Parents passed when he was 19. Raised his younger sister mostly by himself since then. Worked through university. Clean record. Nothing strange. Nothing that explains the way Kale's chest tightened the first time he stood close to him. Kale read the file 3 times. It told him nothing about the smell. Files do not explain scents. Files do not explain the way his wolf, The part of him he keeps locked away during work hours went completely silent and then completely alert the moment Soren walked into his office. He has not told anyone this. Not even Rurik. Especially not Rurik. Today starts like any other day. Soren arrives at 8, coffee for himself. Tea for Kale, even though Kale insists he does not drink it and then drinks it anyway. Kale has a meeting at 9 with a company called Belrose Group, a smaller business he has been trying to acquire for months. The owner, an older man named Director Hess, is stubborn and slow to trust. Kale needs this deal to close by the end of the month. Everything is ready for the Belrose meeting, Soren says, setting a folder on the desk. I put together a summary of their last 3 quarters plus notes on what Director Hess cares about most. He mentioned in an old interview that he started the company for his late wife. He does not like being treated like a number. Kale looks up. You read a 10-year-old interview for this. I read everything, Soren says simply. Kale does not say anything, but something in his eyes shifts. It is the same look from the first day. Surprise quickly hidden. The meeting starts at 9 sharp. Director Hess sits across the table with 2 of his own people, arms crossed, unimpressed before anyone even speaks. Kale begins his pitch, numbers, projections, growth strategy. Director Hess barely reacts, then Soren speaks up. Director Hess, Soren says gently, I read that you built Belrose in memory of your wife. I think that matters more than any of these numbers. Mr. Draven does not want to erase what you built. He wants to protect it, grow it the way she would have wanted. Room goes quiet. Director Hess's expression softens just slightly for the first time all morning. Kale glances at Soren, caught completely off guard. By the end of the meeting, Director Hess is shaking Kale's hand and smiling. The deal that has been stuck for months just moved forward in 20 minutes. Back in the office, once the door closes, Kale turns to Soren. How did you know that would work? Soren shrugs, a little embarrassed. People do not want to feel like a transaction. Everyone wants to know their work meant something. Kale studies him for a long moment. Something about the way Soren says it, easy, unguarded, honest, makes his chest tighten again. The same tightness from day one. You are. Not what I expected, Kale says. Is that a compliment? I have not decided yet. Soren laughs, and the sound of it does something strange to Kale, something he does not have a name for, or rather something he refuses to name. The rest of the afternoon moves normally. Emails, calls. A minor crisis involving a vendor who tried to double the price on an order last minute, which Soren handles so smoothly that Kale does not even need to step in. Around 6 in the evening, most of the office has cleared out. Soren is at his desk outside Kale's office, finishing up the last of the day's paperwork when he stretches his arms above his head and yawns. Kale steps out of his office right at that exact moment, and it hits him again. Harder this time. That scent. Warm, soft, achingly familiar, and this time it is not faint. It fills the entire hallway. Kale freezes mid-step. His mind goes somewhere else entirely. 3 years back. A small town far from the city. A rainy night at a train station. A stranger who helped him when he was injured and alone, who bandaged his arm with a torn piece of his own jacket without asking a single question, who smelled exactly like this. Kale never saw his face clearly that night. It was dark, and he was in too much pain to focus on anything except the voice, soft and steady, telling him it would be okay. He never got a name. He was gone by morning, and Kale spent months afterward searching for someone he could not even properly describe. He told himself it was nothing, just a stranger, but the scent never left him. Kale, Soren's voice snaps him back to the present. Are you okay? You look like you saw a ghost. Kale blinks hard. Soren is standing right in front of him now, brows pulled together in concern, close enough that the scent is undeniable, unmistakable, impossible to ignore. Where were you 3 years ago? Kale asks before he can stop himself. Soren looks confused by the sudden question. What? I mean, I was in my last year of university. Why? Did you ever travel? Take a train somewhere far from the city? I mean, yeah, once. I went to visit my aunt in Myron Falls. I remember because the train broke down and I got stuck at the station overnight. Soren tilts his head, studying Kale's face, which has gone unusually pale. Why are you asking me this? Kale's entire world tilts sideways. Myron Falls. That is the exact town. That is the exact station. Nothing, Kale says quickly, too quickly, stepping back like Soren's closeness suddenly burns. Forget I asked. Go home. It is late. Soren does not move right away. He watches Kale with an expression that is somewhere between confusion and quiet concern, like he can tell something important just happened and he has no idea what it was. Kale, if something is wrong, you can talk to me. That is kind of my job too, right? Not just coffee and scheduling. Kale looks at him, really looks at him for the first time since he met him. The soft brown hair, the gentle eyes. The kindness that seems to come so naturally to him. The same kindness that saved a stranger at a train station 3 years ago without asking for anything in return. It cannot be him. It is impossible. And yet, "Go home, Soren," Kale says quietly. "Please." Soren hesitates, then nods slowly, gathering his things. At the door, he pauses and looks back. "What it is worth," he says. "Whatever is bothering you, I hope it gets better." Then he is gone, and Kale is left standing alone in the hallway, his heart pounding in a way it has not pounded in 3 years, staring at the space where Soren just stood like it might give him answers. Rurik finds him there 10 minutes later, still frozen in the same spot. "Boss, you good?" Kale does not answer right away. When he finally speaks, his voice is quiet, almost unsure of itself, which is not a tone Rurik has ever heard from him before. "I think," Kale says slowly, "I just found someone I thought I lost forever." Rurik blinks. "What?" Kale does not explain. He just walks back into his office and closes the door, leaving Rurik standing in the hallway completely confused and leaving the audience with one burning question hanging in the air. If Soren really is the stranger from that night, why has fate brought them back together now? And what happens when Soren finds out the truth? The next morning, Kale does something he has never done before. He gets to the office early, earlier than Soren, earlier than Rurik, earlier than the sun, honestly, because he did not sleep much at all. He spent the entire night going over it in his head. The station, the rain, the stranger who patched up his arm with a torn piece of cloth and talked to him in a soft, steady voice until the pain stopped feeling so sharp. He remembers the voice more than the face. He remembers the scent more than anything else. He needs to know for sure, but he does not know how to ask without sounding insane. When Soren walks in at 8, he stops in the doorway, surprised. "You're here early." "Couldn't sleep," Kale says, which is at least half true. Soren studies him for a second like he is deciding whether to push further. He decides not to. "Okay. Well, I brought bagels. Figured if you're going to be weird and early, you might as well be weird, early, and fed." Despite everything spinning in his head, Kale almost smiles. Almost. The morning moves the way mornings usually do. Meetings, calls, a minor disaster involving a shipment that arrived at the wrong warehouse, which Soren solves with 3 phone calls and 0 panic. Kale watches him work and cannot stop thinking about Myron Falls. Around noon, Rurik corners Kale in the break room, arms crossed, looking far too amused for Kale's liking. "So," Rurik says, "you gonna tell me what that was about last night? You said you found someone you lost." "Have known you for 8 years, Kale. I'm not dropping it." Kale sighs, rubbing a hand over his face. He trusts Rurik more than almost anyone, so after a long pause he tells him the train station, the rain, the injury, the stranger who helped him and vanished before morning, the scent that has haunted him for 3 years. Rurik's smug expression fades into something more serious. "And you think it's Soren?" "I don't know, everything matches. The town, the timing, the scent, but it does not make sense." "What are the odds?" "Fate has weird odds," Rurik says quietly. "You gonna ask him?" "And say what?" "Hey, did you save a stranger's life 3 years ago and then vanish without telling him your name? He'll think I'm crazy. Better than saying nothing and losing him twice." That sentence sits heavy in Kale's chest for the rest of the day. That evening, Kale finds himself lingering by Soren's desk long after he should have gone back into his office. Soren is packing up his things, humming quietly to himself, that same small habit Kale has noticed all week. "Soren, yeah, have dinner with me." Soren freezes halfway through zipping his bag. "What?" Kale realizes how that sounded a half-second too late. His ears go slightly red, which is a thing Soren has genuinely never seen happen before. "As a thank you," Kale adds quickly. "For the Belrose deal and the warehouse thing today, you've been good at the job." Soren blinks a few times, clearly trying to read whether this is a normal boss thing or not a normal boss thing at all. Eventually he just smiles, the nervous edge from day one mostly gone now. "Okay, sure, dinner sounds nice." They end up at a small restaurant a few blocks from the office, quiet, warm lighting, the kind of place that does not scream money even though everything on the menu is expensive. Cale picked it on purpose. He wanted somewhere calm, somewhere he could actually talk. Except once they sit down, he has no idea how to start. So, Soren says, breaking the silence, stirring his drink. Are you going to tell me why you have been acting strange since yesterday, or am I supposed to guess? Cale exhales slowly. 3 years ago, I was traveling for business. Something went wrong. I got hurt pretty badly, and I ended up stranded overnight at a train station in a small town. It was raining. I did not know anyone there. I thought I might actually be in real trouble. Soren's smile fades slowly into something more focused, more serious. Someone found me, Cale continues. A stranger. He did not ask questions. He just helped. Tore his own jacket to wrap my arm. Stayed with me until morning talking to keep me calm. I never saw his face clearly. It was dark and honestly I was in too much pain to focus. But I remember his voice. And I remember exactly what he smelled like. Soren has gone very still. I looked for him for months afterward, Cale says. I never found him, I never even knew his name, but I never forgot that night. Restaurant around them seems to fade into background noise. Soren's hands have stopped moving on the table. Myron falls, Soren says quietly. Not a question. A memory surfacing. Cale's heart stops. What? There was a man at the station, Soren says slowly, like he is pulling the memory out of somewhere he buried it a long time ago. Hurt. Alone. It was pouring rain and the trains were all delayed because of it. I remember thinking he looked like he was trying so hard not to show how much pain he was in. Soren looks up, eyes wide. I stayed with him until his ride came in the morning. I never got his name either. He was gone before I woke up. Neither of them says anything for a long moment. The restaurant hums quietly around them, completely unaware that two lives that crossed once in the rain 3 years ago just collided again over a dinner table. It was you, Cale says, voice barely above a whisper. It was you, Soren repeats, just as quiet, like he is still trying to convince himself it is real. For a second, something passes between them, something neither of them has words for yet. Then Soren laughs, a little shaky, a little disbelieving. Okay, that is insane. What are the actual odds of that? Apparently not as low as I thought, Cale says, and this time he actually smiles, a real one, small but real, the kind Soren has not seen from him before. They talk for the rest of the night. Soren tells him about that night from his side, how he almost did not stop, how something about the stranger just made him want to help. Cale tells him how he searched, how he gave up eventually but never really let it go. By the time they leave the restaurant, something has shifted between them. It is not obvious. It is not dramatic. It is just there, quiet and steady, like a door that used to be locked is now slightly open. Walking back toward the office to grab their cars, Soren bumps his shoulder lightly against Cale's. So, he says, grinning, does this mean you are going to stop being so scary at work now? Absolutely not. Worth a shot. Cale huffs out something that might be a laugh. For a moment, everything feels light. Easy, like maybe fate finally did something right for once. Then Cale's phone buzzes. He glances at it and his expression changes instantly. All the warmth from the last 2 hours drains out of his face. What is it? Soren asks. Cale reads the message twice, like he is hoping it will say something different the second time. Director Hess pulled out of the deal, Cale says slowly. He says someone came to him with information, said I only wanted Belrose to shut it down and sell off the assets. Said I never actually cared about protecting what his wife built. That is not true. That is the opposite of what we told him. I know, Cale's jaw tightens, which means someone is lying to him on purpose. Soren frowns. Who would do that? Cale stares at the message a moment longer, something cold settling behind his eyes. Someone who wants this deal to fail, and there is only one person inside my company who benefits if it does. Soren's stomach drops. Cale who? Cale looks up at him, and for the first time all night the warmth is gone, replaced by something sharp and guarded. My cousin, Ellis. He has wanted control of this company since the day my father handed it to me instead of him. Easy night they just had suddenly feels very far away. There's more, Cale says, scrolling further down the message. His face goes pale in a way Soren has never seen before. Ellis says he has something on me, something from 3 years ago. Something he says will destroy everything if it gets out. Soren's chest tightens. What could he possibly have? Kale looks at him slowly, and the realization hits both of them at exactly the same moment, cold and sudden, like the rain from that night 3 years ago all over again. He might know about you, Kale says quietly. He might know what happened at that train station. Kale does not sleep that night either. He sits in his penthouse with every light off except one lamp, staring at his phone, waiting for Ellis to make the next move. Soren wanted to stay. Kale would not let him. Not until he knew exactly what Ellis had. He does not have to wait long. At 7 the next morning, an email lands in every inbox across Draven Holdings. Board members, investors, staff, even Director Hess. The subject line reads, "The truth about Kale Draven." Kale opens it with his jaw clenched so tight it aches. Inside is a story twisted just enough to sound believable. It claims Kale abandoned an injured stranger at a train station 3 years ago after using him for help, then paid people to track him down and hire him quietly so no one would ever find out what really happened that night. It paints Soren as a pawn. It paints Kale as a liar who manipulates people and then buries the truth. None of it is true, but it does not need to be true. It just needs to sound true enough to make people doubt him. Kale's phone starts ringing before he even finishes reading it. By the time he gets to the office, the whole building feels different, quiet in the wrong way. People glance at him and look away too fast. Soren is already at his desk, pale, staring at his own phone with his hands shaking slightly. "Kale," Soren says the second he sees him. "Everyone got it. Investors, the board, Director Hess. Even my sister saw it. She called me crying, asking if it was true." "It's not true," Kale says immediately. "I know that, but do they? That is the question that matters." Kale storms into his office and Rurik is already there, arms crossed, expression darker than Soren has ever seen it. "Ellis timed it perfectly," Rurik says. "Emergency board meeting in 2 hours. They are talking about pulling support. If investors panic, they will vote you out of your own company." "Where is Ellis?" Already requested to speak at the meeting, says he has proof. Kale's hands curl into fists at his sides. He has nothing. He is twisting a private moment into a weapon. "Doesn't matter if it's twisted," Rurik says quietly. "It just has to look bad enough." Soren stands frozen in the doorway, watching the two of them, feeling like the ground under him has cracked open. This is his fault. Not directly, but it feels that way. If he had never walked into this office, none of this would be happening. "I should quit," Soren says suddenly. Both men turn to look at him. "If I am gone, there is no story," Soren continues, voice shaking but steady enough to push through. "No scandal, no leverage for Ellis. You keep the company, you keep everything you built." Kale says, so fast and so sharp it startles even him. "Kale, be smart about this." "I said no." Kale crosses the room in 3 steps, standing right in front of Soren, closer than he probably should be given everything happening around them. "I searched for you for 3 years, Soren. 3 years. I'm not losing you again because my cousin wants my company badly enough to burn both of us to get it." Soren's breath catches. Whatever he was about to say next disappears completely. "Then what do we do?" Soren asks instead, quieter now. Kale looks at Rurik. "Get the board meeting moved up. Now, not in 2 hours. I want to face this before Ellis has more time to spread it further." Boardroom an hour later is tense in a way Soren has never experienced in his life. Long table, a dozen serious faces, Ellis sitting at the far end with a smug, practiced calm that makes Soren's skin crawl. He looks like Kale in some ways, same sharp jawline, similar dark hair, but where Kale's eyes are steady, Ellis's are calculating. "Kale," Ellis says smoothly as the meeting starts. "Good of you to join us so quickly. I was worried you might not have the courage to show your face." "The theater, Ellis," Kale says. "Say what you came to say." Ellis smiles and stands, walking the room like he already owns it. He repeats the story from the email, twisting the details, making it sound worse with every sentence. He talks about manipulation, about hidden motives, about a boss who preys on vulnerable young men and hides it behind a job title. Every word lands like a blow. Soren, sitting near the back of the room where Kale insisted he stay, feels sick. "Have proof," Ellis says finally, holding up a folder. "Financial records showing payments made to locate Mr. Vale months before he was ever hired. This was never a coincidence. This was planned, controlled." Room shifts uncomfortably. A few board members exchange glances. Director Hess, sitting near the front, looks troubled. Kale stands slowly. The room goes silent. Right about one thing, Kale says. I did search for someone for months, 3 years ago. I paid people to help me look. I never found him. I gave up eventually because I had no name, no photo, nothing to go on except a memory. He turns, looking directly at Soren for the first time since the meeting started. I did not hire Soren because I knew who he was. I hired him because he was the best candidate for the job. I did not even realize who he was until days after he started working for me. That is not manipulation. That is fate being unfair enough to make me fall for the same person twice without telling me. A few people in the room shift, listening more carefully now. 3 years ago, Kale continues, voice steady despite everything shaking underneath it, I was hurt, alone, and scared in a way I have never admitted to anyone in this room. A stranger helped me, asked for nothing, stayed with me until I was safe. I never got his name. I never forgot him. He looks back at Ellis. You did not find a scandal, Ellis. You found the one good thing that has happened to me in years, and you try to turn it into a weapon because you cannot stand that this company is not yours. Ellis's composed expression cracks slightly. This is not about the company. It is always about the company with you. Room is dead silent now. Director Hess clears his throat. For what it's worth, Hess says slowly, I received that same email this morning. I almost believed it. He looks at Soren, then back at Kale. But I also remember what your assistant said to me in our meeting, about treating people like more than numbers. That did not sound like manipulation to me. It sounded like someone who actually meant it. Murmurs move through the room. Slowly, painfully slowly, the tide starts to shift. Ellis, sensing the room turning against him, tries one last angle. The financial records do not lie. He paid for a search. I paid to find someone I thought I lost forever, Kale says, voice finally breaking with real emotion for the first time. Because he mattered to me. Because that night mattered to me. If wanting to find someone who helped you is a crime now, then arrest me. Silence again. Then quietly, one board member starts clapping. Another follows. It is not loud, not dramatic, but it is enough. Ellis realizes he has lost the room. His jaw tightens, and without another word, he grabs his folder and storms out, the doors slamming behind him. The meeting dissolves into quiet conversation, board members reassuring Kale that the company's support remains intact, that the story will be handled, that this will not shake investor confidence the way Ellis hoped. Soren barely hears any of it. He is still sitting there, chest tight, eyes stinging, replaying every word Kale just said in front of an entire room without hesitation. When the room finally clears, it is just the two of them left. Kale walks over slowly, some of the sharp edges from the meeting still lingering in his shoulders. You didn't have to say all that, Soren says quietly. In front of everyone. I did, Kale says. I have spent 3 years wondering if I imagined how much that night meant. I am done pretending it did not matter. Soren's eyes fill up despite himself. Kale, I am not done, Kale says, stepping closer, voice dropping softer than Soren has ever heard it. I do not know how to do this part. I have never done this part. But I know I am not letting you walk out of my life a second time without saying something. Space between them closes slowly, quietly, the whole chaotic morning fading into something that finally feels still. Neither of them moves for a second. The boardroom is empty now, quiet except for the soft hum of the city outside the windows. Kale is standing so close that Soren can feel the warmth coming off him, and for once, Kale does not look like the untouchable man who fired 3 assistants in 1 week. He looks nervous. Actually nervous in a way Soren has never seen. You are terrible at this, Soren says softly, a small smile breaking through his tears. I told you I have never done this part. You ran a company by 25. You just took down your own cousin in front of a full board. And this is the thing that scares you, apparently, Kale says. And there is something almost boyish in the way he says it, something that makes Soren's chest ache in the best possible way. Then let me help, Soren says. He reaches up, resting a hand gently against Kale's jaw, the same steady kind of touch he probably used 3 years ago on a stranger in the rain. Kale's eyes close for a moment, like he is finally letting himself feel something he has been holding back for 3 long years. I looked for you too, Soren admits quietly. Not for months, Not the way you did, but I thought about that night more than I ever told anyone. I thought I made it up in my head honestly, made it bigger than it really was. You didn't make it up. I know that now. Cale leans down slowly, giving Soren every chance to step back if he wants to. He does not want to. When their lips finally meet, it is soft, careful, nothing like the sharp, confident man who barks orders across the office. It feels like relief, like something that took 3 years to find its way home finally arriving. When they pull apart, Cale rests his forehead against Soren's, breathing slow for the first time all day. The record, Cale says, you are still the best assistant I have ever had. Soren laughs, wiping his eyes. Even though I make you drink tea you claim you hate, especially because of that. The weeks that follow are not perfectly smooth because nothing in real life ever is. Ellis does not disappear quietly. He tries one more attempt to twist the story publicly, releasing a statement claiming Cale pressured the board into silence. But this time, Director Hess speaks up publicly in Cale's defense, and slowly other partners follow. The truth, once it has room to breathe, is stronger than any lie built to bury it. Ellis eventually steps down from his position at the company entirely, choosing to disappear from the public eye rather than watch his own reputation crumble further. Cale does not celebrate this. He simply feels lighter, like a weight he has carried since childhood has finally been set down. Soren's little sister, Myra, finds out about everything roughly a week later, mostly because Soren cannot stop smiling around her and she is not stupid. Wait, she says, staring at him across their small kitchen table. Your terrifying boss is the mystery train station guy you would not shut up about 3 years ago. I did not talk about him that much. Soren, you named your phone background after that night. It was a picture of a train. That is not the same thing. Mira just laughs, shaking her head. Okay, well, bring him to dinner. I need to see this man who made my brother believe in fate. Cale, terrifying billionaire, boardroom warrior, a man who once made a grown intern cry over office supplies, turns out to be nervous meeting one 19-year-old girl over a home-cooked dinner. She is going to judge me, Cale mutters, straightening his jacket for the 3rd time outside Soren's apartment door. She judged the delivery guy last week for bringing the wrong sauce. You will survive. Dinner goes better than either of them expected. Myra spends most of it teasing Cale relentlessly, and to Soren's surprise, Cale takes it well, even laughing at himself a few times, something Soren has genuinely never witnessed at the office. Rurik, who insists on tagging along uninvited halfway through dessert, spends the whole night telling embarrassing work stories about Cale that make Soren laugh so hard he nearly falls off his chair. He once yelled at a printer, Rurik says between bites. Full conversation, out loud. Like it insulted his mother. It jammed on purpose, Cale mutters. I could tell. The printer does not have feelings, boss. You do not know that. Months pass. Draven Holdings recovers fully, stronger in some ways because the public saw a side of Cale that made him feel human instead of untouchable. Employees notice a difference too. Cale is still sharp, still demanding, still someone who expects excellence, but something around him has softened. He smiles more. He listens more. People in the office start joking quietly that Soren is the only person alive who can make the boss laugh without getting fired for it. One evening, almost a year after that first day, Soren walked nervously into Cale's office with a coffee stain on his sleeve. Cale takes him back to that same small restaurant where they first realized the truth about the train station. Feels like forever ago, Soren says, settling into the same booth. It does, Cale agrees. There is a small pause, and Soren notices Cale's hands are unusually still on the table, like he is holding something back. Everything okay? Soren asks. Cale reaches into his jacket pocket and sets something small on the table between them. A simple ring, nothing flashy, nothing that screams billionaire excess, just something quiet and steady, exactly like the man across from him. I am still terrible at this part, Cale admits, voice a little rough. But I have thought about it for months, and I do not want to spend one more day wondering what I would have missed if I had never smelled that scent again. Soren's eyes fill up almost instantly. Cale, you saved me once without knowing who I was, Cale continues. You stayed by my side when you had every reason to walk away. I do not want to imagine my life without that kind of person in it. So, Soren Vale. Would you stay by my side on purpose this time? For a long moment, Soren cannot speak at all. Then he laughs, half crying, nodding before he even fully forms the word. Yes, he says. Obviously, yes. The restaurant, quiet around them, does not even notice the moment happening in the corner booth. Two men who found each other once in the rain and somehow, against every possible odd, found their way back to each other again. Later that year, their wedding is small, simple, nothing like the extravagant events people expect from someone in Kale's position. Just close friends, Rurik loudly crying through the entire ceremony despite insisting beforehand that he definitely would not. Myra giving a toast that somehow manages to be both hilarious and deeply touching. And two men standing in front of everyone who matters most, finally, fully, exactly where they are supposed to be. Kale Draven, a man once known for being cold, unreachable, impossible to read, spends his wedding night unable to stop smiling, holding the hand of the man who once patched up a stranger's arm in the rain without asking for anything in return. Some people search their whole lives for the person who makes them feel understood without needing to explain themselves. Kale found his once in the dark, lost him, and somehow, against every reasonable odd, found him again in the light. That is the story. And if there is one thing worth taking from it, it is this. Kindness has a way of finding its way back to you, sometimes years later, sometimes when you least expect it, but it almost always finds its way home. If this story moved you even a little, make sure you are subscribed, because there are so many more stories like this one coming your way. Drop a comment and let us know where you are watching from. Thank you for staying until the very end. Lesson from this story: kindness given freely, without expectation, has a way of finding its way back to you when you need it most.